Hello and welcome to GameGuru Classic and GameGuru Max live broadcast number 145, and I am fashionably late. I apologise for those joining us on time, but I had extreme technical difficulties, not least a noise. You know when a USB device connects and disconnects over and over again? It was that noise, and I couldn't figure out what device was playing silly buggers. I suspect it's some sort of vestigial device connection from when I was testing virtual reality earlier today, and I didn't reset the computer. So I thought, rather than annoy you with that noise for like half an hour, best if I just reset and restart everything. And I think it was the right decision, and congratulations for sticking with us and joining us in the live chat. The broadcast format is, as per usual, divided into two sections. The first is a little bit of a demo, and then the second is a Q&A. For those who've been watching the socials and the news feeds, etc., you may be aware that today, in fact, not 1 hour ago, we went live with version 1 of GameGuru Max. So we have officially left early access. We will never return to Steam's early access for GameGuru Max. We are now version 1. We've released it, we've done announcements on Steam, on our own website and on Discord, and there's a couple of other marketing agencies that are going to let everybody know about GameGuru Max being officially available as a version 1. And if I just scroll to the last tab that I've prepared for you, that is the current state of all the high bugs. Remember when it was 60 and before that it was over 100? Well, it's now 1. Not saying that all the highs are fixed, but all the highs have been attended to and marked as fixed. We're waiting for the original posters to confirm that fix so we can close the issue down completely. And we've actually got a few Steam negative reviews on this very last issue, which is the AMD problem. Some AMD cards, I think the 6900 series, the UI looks fine. It's just all the 3D bit is black, so you can't see any GameGuru Max. There is a workaround using DXVK, and there's actually a link. If I just click on it, I posted it at the top for super convenience. Just click this link if you are unfortunate enough to experience this AMD black screen issue. Follow these steps and you're up and running. The reason I put it at the top is because you just want to get started. You don't want to be facing this problem, but it's not a permanent solution. The permanent solution involves our dev team being able to reproduce it, and if you scroll down, you'll see we've gone to extraordinary levels to try and get it to work, or rather not work, on one of our machines. And that conversation will continue until we find out why these particular graphics cards, and there's only a few of them that are causing this problem, is creating sort of black screen situation. Works fine on Nvidia and Intel integrated and other things like that. It's just a couple of the AMD cards that for some reason are just producing some silliness. And so we'll continue to chase this down. We will reproduce it and we will fix it. It's just a case of finding it. And then you don't have to do the DXVK solution once we fix it, and we'll update that one here. And both Preben and I are looking at that. Ultimately, one of us is going to find it and fix it. And so yeah, I'm right pleased to see that the long list of high bug issues that were reported over the last year, but certainly more in the last 2 months, have all been sort of declared fixed, and we're looking forward to having those confirmed for us. So what happens after version 1? Well, let me give you a picture of how it's going to be from now on. These broadcasts that we did every Wednesday at 7 p.m. GMT were dev blogs. They were inside looks as to the process of the early access development and how it was getting on. Well, with the release of version 1 and leaving early access, we no longer have a dev blog, or vlog, I think vlog's the right word, forum. Because we've now released the product, we're out of early access, we're no longer sort of speculating what features and how many features to add, etc., we are now at version 1. And I've mentioned it in previous broadcasts, and this is going to continue. It's called a feature freeze. The reason we have a feature freeze is that if I delete that bit and show you all the bugs, not just the highs, and really there are no highs, subject to them being confirmed as fixed. The 296 that you see here are still bugs. They're not enhancement requests, these are just the bugs, but they're marked into the low and the medium category of bug report. And that's the next thing to be focused on. So during version 1, you're going to get updates, obviously, and those updates will be not focused on adding lots of new features, they'll be focused on getting rid of this list. This list, which largely comprises of mediums and a splattering of lows. There may even be bugs that haven't even been marked as a high, medium or low. I'm sure them can even see one right now, so those needs to be attended as well. And we start with any remaining highs, then all the mediums, then the lows. And just like we did with the highs, we want to get it to practically single digits. We'll never fix every bug ever, because it's just a case of new ones come in and old ones get fixed. So it will never be a zero count. Not whilst it's an active product where the development team just can't help adding a little feature, a little bit of functionality, which may spawn 5 or 6 new bugs. And the reason those bugs exist is that there hasn't had enough testing on them. So that's basically the mission now. We're in version 1, which basically signals the features that you see on the page. Now that's the announcement, but I kept it pretty snappy because the meat of the detail actually went into the previous one, which described on what we were happy with to sort of move towards version 1. It was this list of features, and that's everything that we suggested we do during the early access phase. The only thing that's missing is multiplayer, because it turned out multiplayer, even though we have the tech for it, the expectation of if we said we do multiplayer, the expectation is people will want every kind of multiplayer, specifically the modern kinds of multiplayer. Gone are the days of deathmatch. All new kinds of multiplayer genres and team sharing and stuff. So it was a big extra blob, and it could be done, but you could spend another year working on multiplayer. So we've dropped that for early access, but everything else managed to get into the product as we left early access. And so that's the list. We finished up with 18 demos, and a good chunk of them were created by the community, so thank you very much for that. The storyboard and screen editor obviously lets you do something you couldn't do in Classic, which is to go in and change your title screens and your in-game screens, and even add your own in-game screens and your own screens that you can bounce as you move from level to level to level. We added to the character creator just for general improvements, but we gave you a particle editor and a building editor to go with it. So now you don't have to go out and find that perfect building. You've got some basic control to be able to create your own walls and ceilings and staircases, doors and windows, until you get maybe more familiar with 3D modelling tools, or maybe Blender, or you find an artist who's going to create the art for you. But at least it gets you started. And anyone who's familiar with GameGuru Max, who've been following these broadcasts over the last year and a bit, I'm not sure what 145 broadcasts, one a week, 52 weeks a year. I think there's probably 2.5 to 3 years of broadcasts, and so anyone who's tuned into all of them will know all of the bits that have been going into GameGuru Max over the years. And the list basically speaks for itself. We've finished up the user manual, so that's a PDF that you can get at from the software, 237 pages long, and a big thanks to 2 contributors who contributed so much we added them to the credits. So go into the credits and have a look for them, and also everyone else who helped us get to this point. So I'm really pleased to be able to release version 1 to you, and as always, continue to provide feedback, continue to post things on the issues board. I am not delusional enough to think that 292 bugs is it, and after that we're done, because by the time those 292 are fixed, there's probably another 292 that took their place. But by doing a feature freeze, at least it gives us the opportunity to fix what we've got, And when I say fix what we got, we're not releasing something in a horrible state. The 292 that you saw there, they're edge cases, the bugs that you may encounter down the road if you're doing something very specific. All the ones which were really serious, we got rid of those. We fixed those because 20 minutes into the software and you hit one of those bugs, it wouldn't be a great experience. And we're always reviewing that list as well. 292 are now basically all mediums. We're not just going to then say, oh, that's it now, just mediums. We're probably going to grab another 60 of those and promote them to highs, simply so we have a nice sort of priority list of what's most important, what's still on the radar, and then the lows are the, well, that's technically a bug, but you could argue it's a feature or a functionality request. And so you get that wonderful spectrum from super critical to no one else will ever want that particular thing. But it's technically could be described as a bug, so it stays in the issues board as a bug. I've not been brave enough to click the enhancement tag just to see how many feature requests there are. But when you remember something like GameGuru Max, it isn't just a programming language where you have to create all of the game infrastructure. GameGuru Max essentially promises to do 90% of the game authoring for you, and then you drop in the last 10%. And that's never going to end well, because the 90% is based on a load of assumptions on the kind of game that we anticipate you're going to want to create. And it's basically 90% bag of things most people will disagree with. And so, who do GameGuru Max again? I don't know. But we're here now, we've got some bugs to fix, and after the lion's share of those are done, then we'll look at new features, look at the enhancement list, and find out which ones are easy, which ones blend into existing functionality, and which ones are like practically entirely new products. So that is one heck of an introduction. I know you're waiting for the demo. I know you're waiting for me to talk about Classic, but this is a very special broadcast, being the last of what I would call the dev blogs. After this, I am moving to more of a community role. So I will be joining you in the repository, fixing the bugs for a very specific reason. I'm going to start writing, just in my own personal time, a game. And I'm going to be using GameGuru Max to make that game. And the reason why I'm doing that, I've done it a couple of times before over the years, and it's very effective. If I'm working on a game and I find a bug, and that bug's stopping me finishing my game, I fix that bug. And so you can put the priorities on the issues board to one side a little bit, because you know there's an extra level of motivation if I need to fix the bug so my game doesn't have that bug anymore. And so the 292, I would say the lion's share of those will have to be fixed before I can say I've finished my game. Another reason is when you do write a game, you find it's different than if you create a tool and you think I've designed and made this tool and I've released it. There you go, there's the tool. But you don't really know if that tool is fit for purpose. The purpose, of course, is to create a game until you've made a game with it. And so far, we've relied on the community to create those games and to report back their experiences. But it's always like second-hand. It's a second-hand experience. By creating a game myself in my own time, using GameGuru Max, I'll get to see it firsthand. I'll get to see the problems about this UI could be better, or that script needs to do more, or this feature needs to be added. And I'll not be fool enough to start adding lots of features whilst I'm doing that. The priority will always retain on those 292 bugs. Get that down to a sensible number. That's the initial purpose. But then once you get far enough along, this game is going to be a pretty decent example of what GameGuru Max can produce. And yes, I have an advantage in that I can go in and fix the engine, but then so can anyone else in the community. The source code to GameGuru Max is on GitHub. It's available to anyone who wants to go in and access it. It's only for the fact I've got 30 years of programming experience that might give me the edge. But at the end of the day, I'll be able to hold up at least one game and say, this game was written in GameGuru Max, it runs nice and fast, there's no bugs, there's no instability, it runs on all the hardware that you might happen to have from, say, the last 7 years. And we could put that on Steam and say, you want to know what GameGuru Max does? Don't take our word for it. Play that game. And if you like that game is something you'll be able to create in GameGuru Max. So that's how it's going to transition. I will be spending a little bit more time on Discord, so you'll find me there more often than not. Just generally conversing, finding out what people are doing, getting a sense of where people want the energy spent. And also, I've not worked out the format yet, but I would still like to do live broadcasts. I'd still like to host live questions to show what's been going on. But I'm thinking, it's early days yet. As I said, I've not created an exact picture of it. I think it will be about what I've been doing with the game. And as relevant, what bugs were in my way and how I fixed them. And you'll be able to sort of get an update, I think maybe monthly, on how the bug fixing is going, but in the context of watching someone pull a game together, which has some additional merits as well, because maybe, I mean, you've seen it on Steam, people review for 20 minutes thinking, if I haven't made a game in 20 minutes, the entire product is rubbish. But if you actually have a series of videos which actually watch someone go through the process from the beginning all the way through to practically releasing it on Steam finished, that'd be a nice little sort of chronology of exactly how long it takes to make a game, and the kind of game, and the scope of that game, and how long it took. And it'll basically be, yes, my personal time, but quite a lot of time every week, every month. So you'll get a sense of how long it would typically take to create a game of that size. Last time I did a proper game was, well, it wasn't even 32-bit architecture. It was a very, very long time ago. And I'm not including little demos that I've done. I'm talking full games that I put out into the world and sold. It's been a long time, so it should be a lot of fun as well, creating a game and seeing if GameGuru Max is up to the task. So, I'm just checking my notes to see if I've not missed anything. The big news is revealed, so I have noted down here that I spend a little bit extra time on Q&A. I'm looking at the clock. I have to subtract 15 minutes. So in actual fact, I've only been waffling for 17 minutes. I was going to do a little bit of a walkthrough. This just happens to be your first broadcast. Weirdly, at least for the dev blogs, your last broadcast. You might want to know what it's all about, GameGuru Max version 1. I won't go into exhaustive detail, just refer back to the last nearly 3 years of broadcasts for all of the features in depth as they were developed and created in front of everyone's eyes. But I'll give you a 2-minute elevator pitch of where to start when you get this. And you don't even need to buy it. I've also updated the free demo. That's also live at the same time as version 1. So just go and click download demo. You'll get a couple of demos, you'll get some tutorials, you get all the software. There's a couple of things that have been disabled. That'll be able to save standalone executables and saving your custom characters, things like that. But then what do you expect for a demo? But it certainly will give you an opportunity to see if your hardware is fast enough, whether it's stable enough for the hardware that you've got, and you get to play around with the asset libraries, making levels, playing games, and just getting a feel for the software before you decide to commit cash money on what is effectively a $50 game maker. But if you do decide to plumb, you'll actually get 18 demos. There's 19 here because I bought the Aztec Game Kit DLC, but this wouldn't be there. But you do get a little teaser. There's some of the Aztec assets in out of the box GameGuru Max. It's just this is the full DLC for it. So you get 18 demos covering a number of different genres. Most of these were created when we only had the shooter genre, so nearly all of them are basically shooters. The Switch Escape is a puzzle because I knew that we'd need something that didn't have a gun in it, so I did the Switch Escape. And RPG Template is the RPG demo that was created, one of the last things that was created. And there's other things that are like more mysterious and horror, not so much shooting as to creeping around and solving little puzzles and finding your way through. But a nice scope to get you started. I suggest you start playing these first. If these games are underwhelming and you're not really impressed, it's like, I want to make games better than this, maybe that's your cue to stop there and then. Also, let me know if you'd like me to explore each of these demos and make them available before you decide to buy. It might be that'll be another sort of useful thing to tap into before committing. At the moment, you only get, I think there's 3 of these demos that you get in the demo version, the free demo version. And I don't know, it might be useful that you get to play all of them before deciding to buy. The next thing I'd ask you to look at is the tutorial section. How many have we got here? 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. These are 1 to 3 minute long videos that pick on a particular subject within the software. And I don't think it would take you 3 minutes times 15, an hour or 2 or 3 with a tea break. Just watch them. You get to know pretty much all of the software lickety split. It's better than reading, quicker than reading user manuals, and you don't have to sort of blindly click things in the hope you make something. This basically shows you where all the buttons are and what happens when you press those buttons and the order in which those buttons need to be pressed. So you can go through from the introduction all the way through. And one of the last things I added, because it was highly requested, is how do you do some basic AI, so doors and switches, trigger zones, things like that. So that gets you started on that. I think that's about 2 minutes long. And then just to sort of whet your appetite is just to how deep you can go with the game logic. These were created by the community, demonstrations part 1 and part 2, which go and show you some of the more advanced behaviours that you can click to your game objects. And so that's what my advice would be for getting started with GameGuru Max. And then once you're happy with the tutorials, you've played lots of games, then I would suggest you go into My Games, you click, let me just do test 2, create a new project. This will be it's not just one level like in GameGuru Classic. A project is where the whole game is stored with many levels and many screens. And you're given your level 1 to start you off, drops you straight into the terrain generator where you get to choose your biome. So whether you want it in the Arctic, in the Sahara, maybe the Grand Canyon, and these are just the basic settings. If you go into advanced settings, you can change all kinds of settings on how this procedural generation system works. And then when you're finally ready, click the biggest button on the screen. So we'll call this one MM2 for no particular reason. And what happens is it starts you off with a play start marker. So when you play this level, that's where you start. And as you can see, you've got a nice big terrain to explore. And then when you click add and you go into all, you actually get a big list of all the objects that we've provided out of the box. So it's not an exhaustive list. An exhaustive list would be 1 million objects. And the purpose of the DLC is that third-party artists listen to the community, figure out what people would like to see next. They create those assets, those game-ready assets for you, and then TGC will wrap them up, put them nicely in a little DLC, and then put them onto Steam for you, so you can get them all nice and easily. So yeah, you can see there's already a couple of DLCs in here, but you get the idea. I could pick a barrel, and where's my start marker? Yeah, I could put some barrels in here, and there you go. I've started making my level. And that is probably the 2-3 minute elevator pitch. Obviously, the software is vast. I mean, just look through the tutorials, creating buildings, characters, create your own particle effects. If you really wanted to, you could import your own from 3D models and textures that you made in Blender. You can use the Lua scripting language to create your own scripts. It's deep. It goes deeper and deeper and deeper the longer you go, and it will not take you 20 minutes to explore the whole software. So anyone who puts a review on Steam and it's only 20 minutes long, I assume it's because you had some instability and it crashed or it did something horrible. In which case, do let us know, because that is a high priority bug and we do want to fix them. But you won't really be able to understand everything that the software has to offer without at least a couple of hours of playing around with all the different options. And like I said, the built-in tutorials is a great way of finding out what that is. As you can see here, we have what's called context-based video tutorials, where we place the correct videos at the right part within the software. So we have some videos here, you'll have to see some videos in the terrain generator. Wherever that video is most appropriate, because the buttons are actually right in front of you already, then you can play just to sort of recap on how a particular thing works, and then you don't have to go off do some research and come back. We've basically put the video tutorial right next to the place where all the buttons are that you eventually want to use. So hopefully we have covered a lot of the bases for an easy to use game maker, rather than expecting you to instantly hit the ground running, scripting and creating your games and programming them from scratch. GameGuru Max skips a couple of those steps with the hope that it gets you into the idea of game making, and maybe if you're encouraged and you start making some nice things, eventually you probably will want to move on to programming and scripting and potentially even other tools. So GameGuru Max should be a great start if you're just starting out with game making, or you're curious, or you're game maker curious. So let's call that the demo section. With whatever time we have left, let's go and go into the live chat and see if there's any worthy questions for old Lee. Okay, so as I said, I apologise for anyone who asked a question in the first attempt at running this broadcast today, but that's computers for you. They love to play silly buggers. But this is the second live chat, so hopefully there are some questions early on, and I'll answer them chronologically in the time that we have. I'm looking at the clock, and as this is the last of, say, what we call the dev blog broadcasts, let's make it 20 minutes. Let's see if we can get all the questions answered today. And we are looking for question marks, but I will not blast through just in case there is a really good question and it just doesn't happen to have a question mark. Looking for a question mark. None yet. Yep. Tom asks, UVR is not working correctly and you're in version 1, 2 question marks. Yeah, there's still bugs. In fact, if you go through the 292 bugs, you'll find that probably every subsystem within GameGuru Max is not working correctly. And so that's what the issues board is for, to report them, to allow us to reproduce them, and then to fix them and make the software stronger. But in terms of the features that we wanted to do for version 1, those are complete. And in terms of running all them features and using them and playing with them, they work. There are going to be cases where a particular scenario or an edge case doesn't work, or there's a feature that could be better and improved. Something that's borderline bug, borderline feature, in which case those as well will be attended to after version 1. But we had to leave early access at some point, and it felt to us the right time to do that was when all of the functionality was in, the list that we wanted to do was done, and all of the high priority bugs were fixed. At that point, we was quite happy to say, okay, let's get out of early access, because the early access is like, it's a great place if you're still sort of organically growing an idea and playing with functionality and ideas. But this version, the version we have today, has the list of features that we wanted for GameGuru Max. I'm quite happy to release it at version 1 now. And I am, Tom, aware of your VR issues. We are going to work on them after today, along with RPG, which is quite a deep subject. I'm sure there are bugs there, as indeed there are probably bugs in the building editor and the particle editor and other places. But we'll get to them. We will get to them. Yeah, Boy Gerg says congrats on V1. Thank you very much. Question mark from Monkey Frog Studios. Just because they've released a version 1 does not mean they've stopped working on Max. Absolutely correct, Monkey Frog. Development never ends. You only have to look at GameGuru Classic. We released that 7 years ago and we're still working on it. So maybe that'll give you an idea of where we are. Okay, Patricio. What day will we see version 1 release? Wednesday, the 26th of April 2023. Like now, today, right now in fact. And if you don't already own GameGuru Max, the demo's been updated. So go check out the demo. You'll get all the latest, greatest features. And if we've disabled any features, it pops up and it says, this is one of the features we've disabled for the demo. So it's really easy to check out. Today. Yes, it is today. Let's see if we can find another question mark. And we have 3 question marks. Another one from Monkey Frog. Concentrating on bug fixes is good, but what about optimizations to speed up the engine? What part will be going on? Yes. I'm going to throw in optimizations in with the whole bubble of bug fixing. And in fact, there are a lot of the issues that are actually marked as bugs specifically surrounding the area of optimization and performance. And the reason I'm particularly interested in optimization is the VR implementation we have now isn't very good. And I agree with Tom on that. It requires a ton of optimization. I suspect we're rendering the scene 3 times per frame, and at worst you should only render it twice. So I'm not super happy with the speed of the VR. And anyone who doesn't really know what I'm talking about, virtual reality needs to render the whole game screen twice, and if you want to also watch it on the monitor, more like 3 times. And so that's a lot of work for the graphics card to do, especially when the graphics card is just powerful enough to do 1 rendering of the scene per frame. Asking it to do 2 or 3, it requires some very special optimizations. So it'll be in 2 camps: general optimization, which is just everyone gets the speed up, and then VR specific optimizations, so we can take advantage of knowing that the 2 scenes we're rendering are practically the same, and we can make some little shortcuts so certain processes only need to be done once instead of twice, that sort of thing. But sure, Monkey Frog Studios, I am lumping in optimizations as important as fixing medium bugs, because you may have a piece of software that has 0 bugs, but if it's slow, no one's going to want to play the game, which kind of defeats the object of the game maker. So yeah, we are going to look at optimization, see what we can do, see if there's any silly things going on that we can speed up. Follow-up question: is the DX12 Wicked integration part of what we're going on during this phase? Hit a massive brick wall when we did the DX12. In fact, we were at 95% there. We nearly finished the DX12 port to the latest version of the Wicked engine. But all the bits we added, the custom shaders, the terrain, the trees, the vegetation, that was not playing ball at all. So everything else worked. I mean, we could render objects and all the rest of the software, in GUI, the UI, all that worked. It was just the terrain and the trees and the vegetation that weren't playing ball, and it kind of stopped it. You can get 99% of the way there, but if that last percent stops you, it's not happening. So definitely going to look at it, but it's not going to get in the way of optimizations and bug fixes. Optimizations could be really quick little workarounds that double the speed of your frame rate. You don't really want to wait another 6 months for the latest DX12 Wicked integration when you could have, say, a super cool optimization done in a week or 2 weeks. So it's definitely on the list, but it's not going to be shoved at the top and stop everything else. Another question: how can we change the VR control mapping? Most buttons don't work. There is no ability to change the VR control mapping out of the box easily. The only way to do it is to go into the script and to change the mapping there directly. But I hold my hands up to say that most people don't want to, or can't, or don't have the skills to be able to go in and change those scripts. And the design for exactly how that mapping should work, I'm still up in the air. They've got 2 ideas. One is where it's a HUD screen, so not only can you, the game project developer, map and remap the virtual reality controls, but the same screen can be called up optionally for the end user, so the end user can also remap the VR controls if they want to. That's a 2 birds with 1 stone sort of solution. However, it may not be the most user friendly, because if someone inadvertently changes their VR control mapping, they'll kill the game. You won't be able to go into the menu or out of the menu or fire your gun or whatever it happens to be. So there's still some design work to do on that, and we have an issue already open. It's been set as Enhancement Max, and we can discuss the refinements of that design, and I believe you're already familiar with the issue, and we'll go through that and get it bolted down so we know exactly what we need before we start the coding of it. Here's a question from Raphael. Will we be able one day to create a standalone that can be played on both PC and optionally on VR if the game detects one? You can do that right now. So it's a very recent addition. If you've been following the EXP builds, it was only today that you can save a standalone out, and there's a tick box in the save standalone for VR mode. Just add that tick box before you do the export, and then when you run your standalone executable and you tick that box and you've got your OpenXR headset all set up, when you click the start button and it loads the game and you've got your headset on, you're in VR, and then you'll be able to play your game that you've made in VR. As I've already mentioned, it's probably not the ultimate VR experience, but you will be able to move around, interact with things, leave the game, go back into the game, all the basic VR stuff. And make sure you have a pretty decent graphics card. If you're on like the minimum spec graphics card, certainly check it out, but it's probably not something you want to release as your end game. Let us do some optimization first, before, especially if you're targeting lower end graphics cards. Okay, question mark further down. This is from Talent Gaming. Won't buy the kit from your own company / store cause the internet to explode. Okay, it probably explodes on a daily basis, the internet. Certainly my computer had a decent go at exploding. But the DLCs are all optional. GameGuru Max, out of the box, just that product all by itself, has over 1,000 game-ready objects for you to play with, and an import capability so you can create your own models and bring them in. The DLCs are created by third-party artists. They're not created by TDC. They are entirely optional. And in terms of value for money, they are off the charts. Value for money. You've only got to look at any other asset store and how much they're charging for a single textured model. Not even game ready, just a pretty model that's textured. The GameGuru Max objects have logic built into them. When you drop them into your level, they work. So very good value for money, and only you will know if it's appropriate for your own purposes. But a lot of other people have been saying they like the DLCs, they want to see more of them, and lots of different genres as well. So I think it's sort of a case of you can please all of the people some of the time, some of the people all of the time, but you can never please all of the people all of the time. And I think that saying is never going to go away. Question is under the exploding one. Which built... Oh, sorry. And before that, have smart objects been fixed for version 1 release? Yes. All of the high smart objects, grouping, saving smart objects, loading them, how they work in levels, old levels, levels that load lots of smart objects, all been sorted out. It should work nice now. It's a great feature, grouping objects together and then saving them out as your own smart object. If you do find any issues board is the place. Let us know and we'll fix it. But we want that to be a nice solid system because it's one of the core features of being able to manage your objects in a level. Lots of question marks under there from I Love Clint. Which built-in tutorials cover RPG mechanics? Great question. None. I think we should have a built-in tutorial, should we not, on RPG, and also I think a built-in tutorial on puzzles. We did one on general AI, like a key and a door and a zone, and spawning characters, things like that. But I do think definitely one for RPG because there's a lot of depth there that hasn't really been covered. Check out the there's a guide in the guides folder. Definitely check that out because there is information that you may have missed. But I know what you mean. Everyone likes a video, and in 2 minutes, if you can grasp everything the RPG system does, that will be super useful, especially for a new user. But my advice right now, minus the tutorial, is go to the RPG template demo level and play that because it's all in there. And by the time you've completed the level, you've explored all the different aspects of the RPG mechanics that we have today. How can I find my player marker if lost in my level? Great question. Okay, so this is the level. Remember, we've got 4 barrels in this guy. If I zoom over here and get totally lost, and you're thinking, where's my start marker? Nice little tip for you. Go to detailed object list. You'll see start marker. Open that up. You see number 1 play start marker. Double click it. Takes you straight back to the start marker. And indeed it will take you to any object. Just by double clicking that instance of that particular object takes you straight to it. Great question. Hopefully you like the answer. A lot of secret sauce in GameGuru Max these days. We have been adding to it for like 2 years. Okay, another question mark is down here. This is from Zero. Is there an asphalt biome for Modern City on the list? No, there isn't. And as I said, we're feature frozen, so it's unlikely you're going to see a lot of new stuff in and around there. As soon as I think the lion's share of the medium bugs are solved, and or I totally need custom biomes for a game idea I have not thought of yet. It has actually been requested quite a few times, the ability to have custom biomes, which then leads to the ability to have custom terrain textures. Both of those things super powerful for the power user, for the one who's really going to take their game project seriously and they want everything to be custom. So I don't think there'll be a specific asphalt biome. What there will be, however, is an extra button, custom biome, and inside there you can create your own biome, you can load it up with all of your own assets, and it stays in GameGuru Max, so in future it will pop up as one of your own asphalt biomes. Much like you can create your own particles, and then the next time you go to the particle library, your particles are listed there. So that's likely to be the way it's going to be delivered and when it's going to be delivered. GameGuru Max is very user friendly. That's the hope. It won't please everyone though. Okay, looking for a question mark. We have one. Another one from Monkey Fox Shooters. You can no, that's not a question mark, Lee. Look for questions marks. We don't have any, Lee. They're all gone. No, keep going. Keep going. Right. No. There we go. Is there a tutorial for VR? We should add that to the list, shouldn't we? Yeah. VR was like the last feature to be added to GameGuru Max. So it's like the youngest of the features. So let's remind ourselves. RPG tutorial, yes, totally need that. VR tutorial, yes, totally need that. I have an inkling that the game I want to create in my own personal time will be VR. And I think once the VR has been fleshed out and some more extras added to it, that then might be the best time to do a VR tutorial. But do let me know if you absolutely need one like yesterday. It's not going to be it's not really a hard thing to create a VR tutorial. But if we're in the process of improving it and adding it and speeding it up and stuff, it might be a case that holding on and then having a really good VR tutorial down the road just might be better. J-Rag says I'm late to the show. That's great. So am I by 15 minutes. So you managed to catch a bit more this time round. Here's a question. I'm not sure if I dreamed this. I'm just getting old. But did you say something last week about showing some new behaviours? Yeah, I did. I did, and they were all added. I'm gonna show you a behaviour. We do it a million different ways. Let's drop in a zombie. Hello, zombie. Just to get us into the behaviours list. So most of the new behaviours you'll find in puzzle and RPG. So you can, I think the ones I would recommend looking at is objects, puzzle and RPG. Those are where all the new behaviours were added. Now a lot of these went in and had a very little testing. They were all tested by us internally, but never got a lot of field testing by our wonderful community. So do let us know if some of the new behaviours that have appeared don't quite do what you expected them to do based on the description and the icon that illustrates what the behaviour might do. But yeah, if you want to go check out all the new additions, those are the 3 folders that I'd recommend you check out. And let us know what you think. More importantly, if there's any small improvements you think would make that behaviour twice as powerful. Question marks. I think we've got it. Sorry if I do miss a question mark. I keep scrolling up and down. But I think that was the last one I looked at. Is the tutorial for VR. There is a question mark here. That was the dream question. So I think the next question mark's right down here from Raphael. Why are the latest DLCs more expensive than the older ones? It's a typo. It's a typo. Someone sort of kind of dropped the ball, but the book stops with me, so it's my fault. we agreed ages ago, like a year ago, to standardise the DLC pricing. What happened was exchange rates fluctuated about 2 months ago, and Steam automatically assigned to correct the value proposition. What I mean by that is, when you add the exchange rate to the dollar rate, the sterling rate, and the euro rate, we have to make sure that we generally get the same amount of money for the product. And exchange rates mess that up. And it is really weird that you think there's some at $23.99 and then some at $24. So we're going to look at the exchange rate, find out what it is now, and either everything goes to $24.99 or everything goes to $23.99. At least that's what I want to see. There's a management meeting that's going to happen probably in a week or 2 weeks, 3 weeks, where that gets agreed or re-agreed, and then hopefully it all gets corrected. I personally want to see standardized pricing, so you don't ask the question of why is that 23 and that 24? What's the difference between them? It shouldn't be like that. If it's a game kit, or it's a booster pack, or it's a mini kit, they should have the fixed price. And so when you see that particular DLC type, you already know what the price is going to be. That's the way I'd like to see it. So hopefully that answers the question why you're seeing a disparity there. It was a typo, and I'm to blame. Okay, question. Dink. This is from Maverick 1981. Could we get a how-to for bringing in your own arms and projectile weapons into Max? Otherwise, we are stuck with the limited gun arms that don't fit many genres. Like Yeah, I think the game that I'm going to create will finish that off for you. There already is a how-to. There's a how-to on how to do melee, but I think you're more interested in the projectile side, and so am I. Work has been going on in the background. I'm really happy with that progress. It just never made it into the guide, because the guide, as far as it went, lets you have all the information you need to do melee weapons. So that guide will be updated, and by the time that's been finished and all of the back end stuff, you will be able to choose the arms for your game project and then pick the majority of the new weapons to go into those arms and hands. May not be for the original weapon set, because those are kind of, the arms and the hands are sort of fixed together because they're sort of last generation weaponry. But the new weapon system with the new projectile system that's being designed, it could be any hands, any arms, and then you just find one of the appropriate weapons, drop them in, and it just works out the box. So yeah, keep an eye out for that, and tune into whatever it is that I choose to do down the road, and keep your eye out for when I start talking about projectile weapons and how that works in VR and non-VR and all that cool stuff. Here's some. I'm going to say here's a question mark, and then I did the scrolly mouse wheel, and then it all disappeared. This is from Heidi Leo. Can anyone tell if it's released yet or no? I want for 3 years! Exclamation mark. It is available. I have checked out the Steam page. It is showing live. Do let me know quickly by email, even before this broadcast ends, if you don't see it, because maybe I haven't pressed a button. I think I've pressed every button I could find, so it should be out there. Titanic needs zombies. Every game needs zombies. You can never have too many zombies. And I apologise for those people who don't like zombies. But you can't have everything. Okay, another question from Tom. What key did you press there to get the zombie to the ground level after it appeared? The enter key. So in the non-widget mode, if you click on an object and click the enter key, it will scan for the terrain height, and it will bring the object up to that height. Super useful if, as you saw then, you dragged it in on a special mode and it didn't auto-respect the terrain height. So just hit the enter key, or we used to call it the return key, and you'll be able to see your object again, providing you've selected it. Okay, question mark at the start. This is from Ross. I got Max yesterday but don't have a PC yet. What specs do I need to use it? Probably just ahead, but yeah. There's a minimum specification, but the big one you're looking for is you want a graphics card that's at least a GTX 970. I know that card's like 5 years old, but a GTX 970 is like a 1060. So it's the graphics card that's really going to dictate, for the most part, how fast your games run. So if you've not bought your PC yet, you may as well plumb for recommended settings rather than minimum, because at least then you've got a couple of years
of flexibility, and you know that all of the games in Max will run at 60 FPS for you. So go onto Steam, scroll down a bit, you'll see recommended settings, pick that PC, and ask a lot of people in the community. We're very happy to help to sort of give you some cheat codes on how to get a slightly better graphics card for a lot of power in return. Okay, question, make sure I don't miss one. I think this is the next question marks, 4 of them. Could we get how to for bringing in arms? Oh, we've already asked that one, haven't we? Yes, we have, Lee. Maybe it was a repeat. Dude from 1972. I'm 1974, dude. Do you have any timeline for releasing an AI behavior editor? You mentioned this during the last podcast. Absolutely no timeline, but that's going to be one of my little pet projects. The behavior editor that you currently have works, and I'm really pleased with it, and you can sort of visualize and debug your logic. But I think there's a better way of laying it out. There's a much better way of laying it out, and I want that to my own little pet project. So whatever format my future broadcasts take, I will be talking about that. So tune in, because I think it's a very exciting area, cracking the problem of how do you get people to create game logic entirely visually without making an absolute mess. There have been other solutions, they always end up in a massive splatty mess. Is there a way we can do it without it looking like a big splatty mess? That's my own little pet project I'd like to crack. So do check out my future broadcasts, because I will be covering that, as it's one of my little pet passions. Then I think we've not cracked it yet, and I'm sure there is a way to crack it. Okay, question mark 2 at the bottom, one from Raphael. I can't test right now, but how will weapons in VR work with weapons bought from the game editor? The author who creates that weapon and puts it on the Game Creator Store will need to make sure that it works with the latest version of GameGuru Max and in VR. If the author hasn't specifically said that it works in VR, assume it doesn't, because I'm sure there's a couple of gotchas, and an old weapon probably won't work in the VR as well. So the weapons we've provided out of the box in GameGuru Max, we've already tested them to make sure they work in VR. But we can't guarantee any other weapon from any other source will work with VR. It doesn't quite work like that. And the second of the questions from Talent, have you considered doing these streams on Twitch too? Used to do them on Twitch. Twitch was the first place I did my broadcast. And then YouTube came along, and we saw the opportunity to combine collateral. So we got like progress videos, end of month videos, and live videos all in one place. So you go to one place and everything's there, instead of having it all spread around everywhere. That's why we moved from Twitch and put it all on YouTube. It's great to have everything under one roof, both for us, for administrating and moderating it, but also for you, so you can see everything that's going on in one place. A lot of congrats on V1, thank you very much. Any more questions for me? I'm conscious of the time, but as I said, as this is what we would call the last of, say, the Wednesday devblog broadcasts, I don't mind sticking around a bit longer. The sun's going down here in Wales, but I also don't want to make a 2-hour YouTube broadcast that nobody watches because it's too long. So I look for 2 more questions. The next 2 questions are the receivers, the lucky receivers of answers. But if I don't see any questions in the next 40 seconds, we'll call that it. And I'll start putting together my plans for what a future broadcast might look like. But looks like I've exhausted 3com's attention span, so thank you very much for the congrats. Just to repeat, in case anyone joined us late, today we officially launched GameGuru version 1 on Steam. We have now officially left early access. We shall never return to early access for GameGuru Max. We are now focusing on the last 292 low and medium bugs that are still on our issues list. And I will be on Discord more often to answer questions and to sort of be part of the community, talking about game projects, including my own pet project. I don't know what it's going to be yet. I'm looking forward to playing with VR, and as part of that process, optimizing for VR. I have a soft spot for murder mysteries and puzzles, not so much shooting. I know that sounds weird, having convened a game maker that predominantly did shooting for like 7-8 years. But really, I like more of the adventure, the narrative, the telling of a story. That's sort of where I'll probably end up going with my game idea. Let's say Tom gets the last question of the last devblog broadcast, and that is, I created a brand new project, added RPG screens, added new empty level, went in VR, my controller still didn't work, not sure why. Probably a bug.
So if you use the issues board, and this basically goes for everyone, if you're using GameGuru Max version 1, do not think for 1 second that's it. It's just a day in the calendar. Tomorrow we continue fixing bugs as if nothing ever happened. It's just version 1 marks the list of features that this product represents. And so if you're buying version 1 with the expectation 10 more features is going to show up in a week, that ain't going to happen. What is going to happen is we're going to continue to fix bugs, and what is already in there gets improved. So that's basically what you're looking at. That's the proposal. So do use the issues board if you have a problem, and we'll be reading it all the time and trying to fix them as quickly as possible. Okay, let's call that a day. Thank you very much for all of your attentions. And if you've been joining me since the beginning, 2.5 years ago, congratulations, you got to broadcast number 145. We're going to change things up next week. I'll let you know on Discord, if you use Discord, what my plans are going to be. And we'll sort something out and then telegraph it so you've got plenty warning before I actually do a live broadcast, and you can join and find out what's going on and what's going on in my head specifically. So thanks again. I shall leave you there, and usually I would leave with I'll see you again next Wednesday, but that's no longer the case. I'll see you guys and gals on Discord. Who's that? Okay, great. I will bid you adieu. Enjoy GameGuru Max version 1. I hope you enjoy using it as much as I and my excellent team has enjoyed creating it. And I'll speak to you all soon. So until then, I shall say goodbye.